Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm really excited to talk to my buddy Josh Cantwell today. We're going to be talking about something that is critical for all real estate investors, and that's lending. And the truth is how do you, more established real estate investors really know that to run a business efficiently, you need to find sources to get access to private money. There's always hard money. There's lots of lending out there. But as you grow, you need to get those rates down. You need to get more competitive so you're doing more profitable deals. That's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to Real Estate Investing Secrets. We're all looking for freedom and the opportunity to live better, more fulfilling lives. But most of us were trained our entire lives to work for someone else and chase their dreams. How can we use real estate investing as a vehicle to achieve financial freedom? My life is dedicated to answering your real estate investing questions and helping you build an investing business that allows you to change your life and the world around you, and to enable you to turn your dreams of financial freedom into a reality. My name is Mike Hambright from FlipNerd.com, and your questions get answered here on the Real Estate Investing Secrets Show. Hey, Josh, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me on, man. Looking forward
good to see you.
Sharing ideas with you again, man.
Yeah, it's good to see you. And it's a good time of the year, beginning of the year. A lot of folks are getting started. Some people have made resolutions to like 10x this sucker this year, and all those things. And so the reality is a critical piece of every real estate investor's business is finding how to get capital. Because a lot of people are timid. They don't want to step on the gas because they're like, well, it's kind of like the proverbial dog that catches the bus. Sometimes you're like, yeah, I'm ready to go, but what am I going to do if I get one and I don't have money, right?
Right.
And so, but before we jump into it, I know you're going to share today kind of 7 steps to raising money. And I think it's going to be really awesome for folks to write this down. So if you're listening right now, make sure you have a pen and paper. But before we jump into that, tell us a little bit about your background and how you found your way into real estate.
Yeah, so I'll just go back. The 30-second sort of introduction is coming out of college, I was a financial advisor. I got my Series 6, 66, 63 life and health license. I was 21, 22 years old, and my clients were like 3 times older than I was. I love the finance game. My father was an entrepreneur in the financial services world, got very comfortable there. But I realized really quickly, Mike, that my most successful clients owned real estate. They did not have all their money in the financial markets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. They owned hotels. They owned apartment buildings. They owned single family rentals. They owned buildings, and then they leased them out to restaurants. And so I took notice of that because when I was talking to those clients, I was like, hey man, take this money and put it in a mutual fund portfolio. And they're like, dude, shut up. I got all my real money's in real estate.
Yeah.
So I took notice, and all the way back in 2001, I bought my first income property. It was a duplex. And I was 3 years removed from college, and I bought my first duplex. My parents thought I was nuts. They thought I was a total moron for being 24 years old and buying a duplex and being a landlord. But what they didn't know was that I rented out the upstairs for $700 a month. The downstairs was a 3-bedroom. I lived there. I had one of my buddies moved in with me. He paid me $300 a month, and I was essentially living mortgage free. I got $1,000 a month in rent. My mortgage was $1,100, and I'm like, Mom, I'm living here for nothing. If I rented an apartment or bought a house, I had this big expense. And so I learned the power of income properties, rental properties, and real estate at a very young age. And finally, in 2004, I quit my job, jumped into real estate full time. Like most people, I started with wholesaling and wholesale properties for a long time. Then I got sick, and then I really fell in love with private money in 2012. We can jump into that whole story, but going all the way back, that's really where it started, was seeing real people with real money, with big balance sheets that own cash flowing income properties.
That's great. That's great. And by the way, Josh has been on the show before. I can't even remember when. It's been a while. It's probably been like 3 years ago or something. So if you do a
third episode, like 6 years.
If you do a search on FlipNerd for Josh Cantwell, you'll find. And I'll try to make a note to put it down in the link to his past show. So just take a look at the show notes. But I can't even remember. It's been we've been running the show for 6 years now. So I could have looked that up in advance, but it's in there somewhere. It's in the archives. Nice. And so, it's really excited to have you here. Honestly, it's interesting to see the evolution of real estate investors, because I think it's pretty common. I'm in the same boat. I know you're doing multifamily stuff now. I started doing a little bit of lending this year, nothing to the level that you're doing. And I think it's a part of the evolution of a real estate investor is you start off with wholesaling because it's quick, less risk. You're hungrier probably. Not that you're not hungry now, but you're willing to hustle more because that's where you're at, right? As you mature in your business and you start to stack up some assets and you start to like maybe not want to hustle as much as you used to, use your mind, use your even Robert Kiyosaki says the ultimate kind of quadrant to get to is to be the investor, right? It's to effectively be the bank, right? And so I think no matter where people that listen right now, no matter where you're at, you need to take note of what we're going to talk about today, because you either need a bank or you need a private lender to find money, and someday you probably want to be the bank, or as much as you can. So yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for sharing. So let's talk a little bit. Let's kind of get into the 7 steps of raising private money here. So what's the first one?
Well, it really starts, these 7 steps, and this is a 20-year process that I've sort of perfected. My experience as a private lender, investing in real estate, and then ultimately using this exact 7 steps on hundreds of people, really dialed this in. So step number 1 is not marketing, it's not branding, it's thinking. And step number 1 is to create an irresistible offer. When I think of an irresistible offer, Mike, you don't want to be one of those guys that's a real estate investor that goes to your friends and family and says, hey, will you lend to me? You want to have, number 1, an irresistible offer. When I say irresistible, when I was really into big fix and flips, and I still do some fix and flips now, I do a ton of fix and flip lending. I created an offer by mistake where I told one of my buddies, hey, listen, if you invest in one of my deals, become my private lender, I'm not going to pay any points. What I need is I need 150 grand. I'll pay you 12% interest or 15% of my profits, whichever is greater. Now, what you're going to do for me, my buddy's name was Mike. And I told Mike, hey, listen, what I need you to do, though, is I need you to defer all the interest till the end when I either sell the property or refinance it, so that I don't have any cash flow crunch. It'll allow me to move faster. It'll allow me to do the deal quicker. Yeah. And I talked to Mike, and there's a whole way to present it, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But the whole idea is irresistible offer, like be overly generous. Another irresistible offer is like I'll give you 10% interest and 10% of my profits. Or if you're doing income properties, maybe paying somebody 8 to 10% preferred return and giving them a certain amount of ownership in your deal, maybe 10% of your net free cash flow in perpetuity.
Yep.
So I always wanted to come up with a way that investors felt like, hey, my minimum, if I just get the minimum of 8 or 10 or 12%, that's great. But there's this sort of cherry on top of the cake that if I can get that too, this is a no-brainer. If my floor is 10% or 12%, I have the opportunity for this upside. And what actually happened, Mike, is I did a couple deals. One of them was with a former neighbor of mine. And we were able to buy a property, fix it, flip it, and sell it in 4 months. And when we factored in his 15% of our profits, he ended up with a 34% annualized return.
Wow.
When I started to tell that story to more and more people, it was like, look, your minimum is 12%. That's an irresistible offer. You got to start with that. That's step number 1.
Right. Yeah. And that's especially if you're getting started in raising money, right? Because if you don't have a track record, you don't have a lot. Of course, you and I both know now after you've done 100 deals, you're probably paying less in interest to those private lenders because you're more established, right? Because then somebody else will start to compete. That's how competition works. Right? They'll start to compete for the ability to lend to you even, right? They're like, well, heck, I'll do it for 8%. And you don't have to pay me anything on the back end. And right. So when you're first getting started, you got to pay a little bit more. You got to prove yourself. So good. So what's the second one?
Yeah. The second one is to create what I call a Project 100. Project 100, step number 2. This is something I learned in the financial services world. It's something that Gary Keller talks about in his book about, millionaire real estate agents. It's something that most financial services shops teach. It's something that if you're building any business and it's a service business, a lot of people start with their Project 100. And Project 100 is a list of people that already know, like, and trust you, or places that you can go where you can meet more people that know, like, and trust you. You see, when you're raising money, there's very specific Securities and Exchange Commission rules. You can either do what's like a friends and family offer, or you can do what's called a 506C and go to the strangers and do general solicitation. But the truth is, I've done 506C. I have a 506C. I can solicit the public for money, recruit money from accredited investors, but none of them will invest with you unless somebody else has gone first. And so when I think of Project 100, I don't think of, Mike, who can I pitch for private money? That is not on my mind at all. That's, of course, one of the end goals. But what I think about And again, I did this when I first started building my real estate business in 2004. I did it again after I recovered from cancer in 2012. And what I thought about was, who do I know that can buy a property from me, that I could sell a property to, that could be a private investor or private lender, somebody that can cheerlead for me, or somebody that can just refer me to other people so I can become the top of mind real estate professional in their world. So I didn't make any judgment calls, Mike, whether they had money, didn't have money, they lived in a huge mansion, they didn't, they lived in a mobile home park. I didn't care. What I cared about was going and presenting this opportunity, this strategy to them. And at the end, which I'm going to get to in a minute, not even asking them for money. And that's part of the strategy, is not pitching them, not asking them for money. It's a specific way to do it. But the Project 100 is a way to start to build your sphere. And then when we move on to one of the lower steps, step number 4, I'm going to talk to you about getting out a physical newsletter. I'll talk about that in a minute. But that's a big part of it, is the Project 100, getting the word out to colleagues, maybe people that you used to work with, people in your neighborhood, just making no judgment call at all about whether they're wealthy or have money or not.
And that includes, like, up front, you're going to make a list of who are the 100 people that I want to go talk to. Like, specifically, you have specific people like that probably like and trust you, like and trust you, right?
Yeah. Your top 100 contacts from your Facebook profile, your cell phone, your email marketing, your top 100 people that you communicate with the most. I don't want you to say, like, I'm going to go pitch my friends and family. Like, don't think that at all. That's not what we're going to do here.
Yeah.
But just the people that you're already communicating with, already talking with, pick those 100 out, write down first name, last name, email, phone number, physical address, get it all together. That's step number 2.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
And I don't want to steal your thunder, but I know you're going to probably get to this. You're going to touch on this somewhere in there. Is often when you tell somebody, like, hey, can I just give you my pitch? This isn't at you. I just want to give feedback to help me make it better. Then people hear your pitch and they're like, well, I want to do that. Right. Yeah. So anyway, I don't want to steal your thunder, but go ahead. So that's awesome. And there's a couple things that we're doing in some of our businesses where Russell Brunson talks about, a few other people talk about, kind of your dream 100 clients who, I run obviously the Investor Fuel Mastermind. So I have this list of, like, people that aren't in yet, who are my dream 100 people that are out there that are heavy hitters. Like, who do I want to get into the group? And there's some things that we do to try to attract them. So that's great. So what's the third one, Josh?
Yeah. So number 3 is to tell everyone what you do in a cool way. And when I think about telling people what I do, and people ask me, like, hey, Josh, what do you do? I don't say I'm a real estate investor. I don't say I invest in apartments. I don't say I flip houses. I don't say any of that. The specific thing that I say is I raise capital for real estate. We buy foreclosures and distressed properties, and we pay our investors a fixed double-digit rate of return. So very specific, because, like, and it's funny, I've learned on how men operate versus women. Like, women can meet other women and they can have, like, a real conversation about each other and their kids and what they know, like, and trust and what they love. And dudes are totally different. Dudes are like, we talk about the weather, we talk about sports, and then we talk about, what do you do? Like, that's just the natural thing, right?
Right.
So I know if I'm, like, at a kid's baseball game, or I'm at a football game, or I'm out with my friends and I meet a new friend, the natural part of that conversation between dudes is, like, so what are you into? What do you do? And I don't ask people, like, what do you do? Like, that's like the 1975 version, like my dad's version of meeting people. But I usually ask people, like, hey man, so what are you into? Like, if I don't know anybody, no clue, just met somebody. So what are you into? And of course they're going to tell me, oh, we're into football and we're into riding, dirt bikes, and, we're into real estate, or, I'm a doctor. What are they going to do? They're going to ask me in return, well, man, what are you into? What do you do? So then I'm setting them up to be able to explain to them, hey, I raise capital for real estate. We buy foreclosures. Just fill in whatever you do. We buy income properties. We buy rentals. We buy apartments. We buy rehab houses, whatever you do, whatever your version of real estate is.
Right.
And then at the end, say, and we pay our investors a fixed double-digit rate of return. And just let that simmer, let that sit with that person. Because what they're going to say is, again, I've delivered that hundreds of times to people. The answer is, hey, like, I just read a book. I just bought a book. Back in the day it was, like Carlton Sheets or like Robert Kiyosaki. Now there's so many real estate, experts, trainers, gurus. Like, I have this book, I have that book, or, I've always wanted to buy a rental property. Or what they'll say is, well, how does that work exactly?
Right.
Right. How does that work exactly?
It's like an icebreaker, right? You stick it out there and then you just like shut up. And it's like, for you, the conversation's over unless they open it back up. Like, well, tell me more about that. Or they might just say, or of course, what you get sometimes is like, so you're a realtor? You're like,
yeah. All the time, like, absolutely not.
Yeah. Heck no.
And I sold it. Well, yeah, absolutely not. But the idea there is, like, we want to be different. Like, everyone says, I'm a doctor, I'm a teacher, I'm a nurse, I'm a garbage man, I'm in sales, whatever they do.
Yeah.
When I tell people, hey, I raise capital for real estate, we buy foreclosures, insert whatever you do. We do rehabs, we buy apartments, whatever. We pay our investors a fixed double-digit rate of return. People are like, bam, like, Josh just punched me in the face. And I say all the time to my staff in my office, that's right down the hall, I say, we need to punch people in the face before they punch us in the face. So, and that's my weird way of saying, we want to surprise them, like, get them on their heels and have them hit them with something that they've never heard before.
Right.
So I'm memorable, something that's going to stand out. Punch them in the face before they punch us in the face. So, that's what telling everybody what you do in a cool way. That's step number 3. Step number 4, Mike, is very simple. Like, it's just to have a pitch, have a pitch book ready, and not a pitch book like I'm going to sell people, but I have a very specific, it's only 10 slides. It's 10 PowerPoint slides. It's not 72 slides. It's not an hour long. It's 10 slides on what we do and how we do it. So if I do end up sitting with somebody face-to-face, which I do often, or I do a lot of calls on GoToMeeting and Zoom like this, I do presentations, I don't want it to be long-winded, but I want to educate somebody through an education-based conversation. I want it to be conversational on what we do without asking for money, okay? And you know where this came from, Mike? I'll tell you a crazy story. So when I was about 24 years old, back in 2004, I went with my buddy down to St. Thomas and St. John in the Virgin Islands. And I met a girl down there, right? So I met this girl, have a great time. She's down there on vacation. I'm down there on vacation for like a week. We're hanging out, and the last night we're there together. I'm flying out the next day. She's flying out the next day. And we're sitting at a bar, and we're talking about, like, boyfriends and girlfriends, right? And I'm describing, like, my ideal girlfriend. Like, she would have this, and she'd have that, and she'd be this tall, and she looks at me dead in the eye, like, pissed off, and she's like, Josh, what about me? Right? So, and then when I get into my real estate stuff, I started thinking, like, because I was describing this, and I don't know why I remember that, but it resonated with me as I got in real estate. When I started describing what we did, and then, I buy, let's say you buy rehabs. We buy properties, at a discount. We renovate them. We bring them back to market. We buy them at 60, 70% of their value. And there's so much equity in that property. We can pay our investors, 10% interest and 10% of the profit, or 12% interest or 15% of our profit, whichever is greater.
Yep.
And I explained that to investors. I remember explaining this to my friend Scott Dress, and Scott said, well, dude, I would do that. I've got 150 grand in my old retirement account. Like, I would do that. And I never pitched him. Just like that girl, I never said to her, like, hey, why don't you be my girlfriend? Like, you're awesome. We had a great time this week, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't that at all. It was this, like, exclusion mentality of, because I described such an awesome thing, but didn't pitch them,
right?
They're more interested.
Yeah.
Right?
It's an old,
there's also no pressure. Like, I don't want to be that weird, greasy salesman with my friends, right?
Right. Yeah, and it's like, there's a sales technique. It's kind of the takeaway, right? You're like, well, this probably, it's doing it another way to say, well, this probably isn't a fit for you. And people are like, no, wait, why not? So it's a little bit of the takeaway. Right. Yeah. Cool. So what's number 5?
Yeah, you got to have that type of confidence, right? That's a great point.
Yeah.
Is having the confidence to be able to go
definitely,
into it.
Yeah, you definitely never want to sound needy, right? Like, I really need this money. Like, you want to almost sound like you don't need it. And there's this special club that you're not a part of right now, right?
Absolutely. So step number 5 is what I call a multi-medium marketing approach, right? So we call it the 2R3M method. So it's the regular recurring multi-medium marketing approach, the 2R3M method. So when I say regular recurring, and I mean a system for marketing. Now, this can help you with everything from raising money to getting more deals to personal branding, building your company, getting you into larger deals like apartments, getting you into more private equity opportunities, getting more respect and admiration from your peers that they want to do deals with you, right? So this little multimedia marketing approach, for me, Mike, and for someone like you that enjoys being on camera, kind of enjoys being in the front of an audience, like I want to do all these things: blog posts, Facebook Lives, Facebook posts, a direct mail newsletter campaign, email marketing. But we've got to create content that puts us, up levels us, that we're above all these other people, that they want to reach up and they want to grab our coattails. They want to invest with us. A lot of my investors, they're like, man, it's kind of a privilege. I don't see this to be disrespectful or to brag, but they're like, I get to do deals with Josh Cantwell. That's freaking awesome. Yeah, that's a lot of them look at it, right? It's not like, hey, Josh, beg for my money. It's like, hey, dude, I can't wait to invest with Josh. He really knows his stuff. The reason why that happens is because we have a very specific approach to marketing. So for me, Mike, it starts with, I got to get on camera. I got to get in front of a whiteboard. I got to get on a podcast. I got to create content for my list, my people. And then we've got a whole distribution system where we have a digital marketing company. And for about $1,200 a month, they'll produce and push out 2 podcasts a week. They'll create YouTube videos for us. They'll create blog posts for us. We do email broadcasts twice a week. And all this content goes out to all these people. That started for me with this little list of 100 people on my Project 100. Now that list for me is 70,000 people that follow my content.
That's great.
And I started doing this in 2012, coming back from surgery when I didn't have a lot of contacts, didn't have a lot of people. I was recovering from surgery. So this regular recurring multimedia approach starts with everything from, like, if you don't know anybody, go to meetups, go to live seminars, grab business cards, go into Facebook groups and start interacting, start communicating with people, start talking about joint venture opportunities that you want to do if you have no list. Step number 2 then of this multimedia marketing approach for me is to get on and teach something: a podcast, a YouTube video, a whiteboard, a solo cast. And then from there, my team takes that content and starts to distribute it. Another piece of thing we do in this multimedia approach, Mike, is once a quarter, highly recommend this piece, is you've got to send a physical newsletter, something physical in the mail, because everyone's bombarded with digital marketing. Like, again, YouTube, podcasts, email marketing, Facebook Lives, it's everywhere. What I don't get is actual physical mail. Nobody gets that shit anymore. So to send out basically a little, like, 1 or 2 or 4 page brag book of the deals you've done or the deals you passed on or how you would structure a deal or some real estate commentary. I had friends of mine that now invest with me. I never pitched them once. I never called them once, but I sent them the newsletter and they're like, hey man, your newsletter is sitting on my kitchen table, or it's sitting next to the toilet, and I read it and I see what you're doing. You've got to tell me what it is that you do. Like, what do you, you're investing in real estate. I've got a couple $100,000. I'd like to put it in play. Like, come present to me. Show me what you do. And I didn't pitch them, but they saw the marketing. They saw the newsletter. They reached out to me, right? Which was awesome.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. So it's huge. This multimedia approach, again, I've got a team of about 8 to 10 people that distributes out all my content. But you don't have to have that. I mean, I started years ago by myself with a physical newsletter and a Project 100 and email marketing.
And I'll tell you know Trevor Mock as well. Trevor's a good buddy of mine. I mean, he talks about content marketing a lot, and obviously Josh and I have created a ton of content because we both have podcasts and all the stuff that Josh just said. But the way that Trevor says it, he has this analogy of like, hey, and he's really talking about more with like SEO, like creating content online to generate leads. But it's the same general concept with content. I think a lot of people are like, man, I could never catch up to that guy or whatever. But Trevor uses this analogy of like, it's like a brick wall. Like, you put down one brick and then you put down another one, and people can still step over it. They're not going to see it. They can see it, or they don't see you, right? But eventually that wall kind of builds up, and you get to a point where you have hundreds or thousands of pieces of content out there. And it's constantly, when it's on the web, people are constantly like bumping up against you. And so at some point they can't like step over you anymore. They have to like go out of their way to avoid you. If they want to avoid you, you're like, this person is everywhere. Like they must be legit. Maybe I should be paying attention. Right. Yeah. Awesome. So where are we at? What's number?
You just gotta start somewhere. You can't.
Yeah. The point is don't say I'm too far behind, I can't get started. Like that's how, if you're going to run a marathon, anything you do, it all starts with one step, right? You got to get started.
And real estate's a long game, right? Because you buy an asset now, it's about becoming wealthy long-term. And that's where you got to make the decision. Am I always going to be a wholesaler doing wholesale deals for income? Or am I going to own some assets that pay me long-term? It's no different with marketing. Are you just going to do email, marketing? And that's like a short-term, fast way to get attention, right? Or are you going to build those bricks, like you talked about, Mike, that you're going to get attention for the rest of your life, like owning an income property? So very, very good point. Mike, step number 6 is to follow a proven sales process. And the sales process that I have, it works like this. After I send out my physical newsletter, all this marketing is out. If people, let's assume that nobody calls me. Let's assume that nobody's responding to my marketing. Let's assume everybody thinks I'm an idiot. Marketing sucks. You can still win here. You can still win. And what I did, especially 6-8 years ago, 2012, I was reaching out to the people that I was sending the newsletter to, and I would just say, hey, I sent out my latest version of my newsletter. I just wanted to know, what did you think about it? That's it. And again, people that were on that list, colleagues, friends, family, anybody that was already a real estate investor, I was sending it to. And it would just stir these conversations like, hey, I got your newsletter, I haven't read it yet. Or got your newsletter, looks awesome. Got your newsletter, Josh. Yeah, I was hoping you would call. I've been so busy. I got 150 grand that I've got to put in play somewhere. I've always wanted to do a fix and flip. And what I would tell people is, look, well, that's great. I'm really happy that you appreciate the newsletter. Why don't we just connect? Let's get together face to face. Let's grab a beer. Let's grab a coffee. Let's grab some soup, whatever. And I can just tell you a little bit more about what it is that I do. That is a technique that works in the financial services world. It's worked for 100 years. Let's just get together and I'll tell you a little bit more about what it is that I do.
Yeah, that's
Get something on the calendar, go meet with somebody. Simple as that. Now, when you're sitting down with somebody, again, I have these 10 slides I use. And ultimately, it's about presenting them. Here's what I do in real estate. I buy these foreclosure properties, or I buy apartments, or I buy these properties, and I'm working with private investors. I don't work with banks. Banks, the underwriting is ridiculous. They're too slow. I need to execute quickly. So I'm using private investors that fund my deals. I pay them 12% interest or 15% of my profits, whichever is greater. And so if you know anyone who is interested in real estate, or know anybody that's looking to invest actively or passively that I should be talking to, just keep me in mind. Refer me to them. Here's my business cards. And then you kind of wait for it, which is at the end of that conversation, Mike, it's the what about me response. Yep. It's the same from my very first private lenders. It's the same about the girl in the bar back in 2004 that I told you about. It's the what about me response, which is exactly what we're looking for. I'm interested in this. And especially because we didn't pitch them. We're not pitching our friends. We're not pitching our family. We're being super cool about it and saying, hey, I'm assuming that you're not interested at all. I'm assuming that you don't have any money. I'm assuming this is not for you, but who do you know? Then they self-select. They select themselves and say, I am interested. And when you do it that way, Mike, you know what's happened? They've invested more often, more money. They're raving fans as opposed to somebody who tests me out with a very small investment, because I did it in a way, the takeaway close, like you talked about, was just cool about it. They didn't want, they weren't afraid. They self-selected. So they said, I'm in. I want to invest with Josh. And they invest more money and more often by doing it that way.
That's great.
Mike, step number 7, super simple, is just follow up. You got to have an easy way to follow up. You're putting all this stuff out there. You've got to have a system. Maybe it's a software that we use. I use a program called Accelerated Investor Office. I also use a program called Infusionsoft. I've also used Google Docs in the past. There's a million different spreadsheets you can set up for follow-ups. You got to follow up. And then you've got to get people onto like an email marketing drip campaign and those physical newsletters to follow up. Again, story, Mike. I was golfing with a friend of mine. He took me down to Trump National Golf Course in Charlotte, North Carolina, all the way back in 2015. I went down. My buddy Sean took me down there. We're golfing with a bunch of his buddies in Charlotte and didn't think anything of it. We're playing golf. We're drinking beers. We're having a good time. 3 or 4 of them that we're golfing with, around about the 12th, 15th hole, they're like, so Josh, what do you do? Right? So right back to the same thing. I raise capital for real estate. We buy foreclosures. We pay our investors a fixed double-digit rate of return. We end up in the clubhouse, and funny story, the former CEO of Lowe's, like the home improvement store, is sitting at the table next to us. The dude's like worth, $400 million, sitting right next to us. It's amazing. So I meet with a guy named Brandon. Brandon's interested. He's already in real estate. He owns about 20, 30 rental properties, but he's got a full-time corporate job. He's very busy. 3 years later, 2018, after following up with Brandon using this approach, following up with him, follow-up, email, broadcast, physical newsletters, Brandon's now invested with me probably right now, as we record this, probably $650,000.
Awesome.
So again, long tail approach, taking my time, using this methodology allows me to have access. And now, Mike, we've got about $34 million of true private money. None of it's institutional, real private capital that I currently have deployed in my fund and in deals, fix and flips, loans, apartments, using that exact 7-step process.
That's great. That's great. There's a couple of things I want to point out here that you mentioned that we kind of glossed over just because so make sure everybody understands it is ask for referrals too. You said that during point 6 about like, do you happen to know anybody? The truth is sometimes people self-select, sometimes they self-select and say, you know what? And I've got these other friends that would be interested in that too. Right. And so you should always be asking for referrals pretty much. Even when you're buying houses, you should always ask, is there anybody else that you think we might be able to help out? Right. Mm-hmm. And so that one, and then I think a couple of things that are the importance of systems. I mean, I'm a systems guy. We've got all sorts of stuff dialed in over here, constantly trying to dial it in for sure. But one thing that's critical there that you mentioned that we didn't explicitly say, but I want people to get is it's so easy for us these days to have thousands of friends on social media, and we know a bunch of people, right? But those relationships and the long-lasting ones, especially if you just keep kind of tapping people on the shoulder, like whether it's through email campaigns or physical reach out, sending a newsletter. I've got a buddy of mine, Todd. That we were talking about earlier, just told me the other day that he needed to replace some glass in his house, like some windows and stuff. And he had somebody do it like 8 years ago. And he's like, glass guys are like a dime a dozen. I don't know any of these guys, but the guy that did it 8 years ago, I haven't talked to him in 8 years, but he sends me a Christmas card every single year, like clockwork. And he's like, it was a no-brainer of who I was going to call, the guy that's trying to maintain a relationship with me. Right. So those relationships are so key these days. And those relationships, have to kind of come outside of social media to be really big.
Mike, I got one more tip. So we've taken all of our company gear, like this gear that I'm wearing. We actually set up our own store. So there's actually white label platforms that have thousands of products. Let's say, this one program that we actually use, 9,000 promotional products, coffee mugs, Yetis, golf club shirts, hats, golf towels. For about $1,800, you can white label that store. You can select the gear that you want, throw your logo on it, and then have a store. And so what we do with our investors, we've got about 250 private investors that invest with us now. Twice a year, we send them the link to the store, and we give them a certain amount of money that they can spend.
Oh, cool.
Here's $50, here's $200, here's $100, whatever. And we say, go to the store and buy whatever you want. And, here's basically your budget. Let's say it's $100. Here's a budget, go spend whatever you want. So they buy gear, like cool golf shirts, hats, T-shirts, whatever they want. And they're buying stuff with my gear on it, but totally free. They personalize it, throw the logo on it, ship it to their house, and our clients get to buy the stuff that they actually will use.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Part of the problem with swag is it's like, what size do they wear? Like, what kind of coat do they want? Do they want what kind of golf shirt? Do they want two-tone, regular? Do they want dry fit? Who gives a shit? Go to the store, right? Buy whatever you want. Here's a $100 credit. Use this code. If they go over that, then they just pay the difference themselves. But 3 weeks later, they get a gift in the mail with a specialized letter from me with exactly the swag that they want that they're going to use. And so people just freaking love it. They can't wait once or twice a year to go to the store, buy gear, use it, and actually get something that they're going to like, as opposed to like, I bought everybody a golf shirt and nobody wears it. They're buying stuff that they like and they're going to use, which is awesome. So I'll shoot you an email, Mike, with the store that we use if you want to.
Yeah, that's great stuff. That's great stuff. We give out a lot of swag too, and we're like, we always do like a crew neck, and people are like, oh, can I get a V-neck? And I really like red instead of black. It's like, oh man, you're right. You're exactly right. So that's awesome. Well, hey, this is great stuff. Thanks for sharing today, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
And if everybody, if you haven't subscribed yet to us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, YouTube, anywhere where you're watching this right now, I'd love it if you go out and subscribe, give us a positive review. We've been doing the show for over 6 years now. And, honestly, your reviews, your subscriptions, stuff like that is really, Josh knows this too, like that's what we feed on because we want to know, like, is our voice being heard? Are we having an impact on anybody? Are we helping anybody? So if you go out there and show us a little love, we definitely appreciate it. Josh, if folks want to learn how to get a hold of you and learn more about what you're working on, where can they go?
Yeah, so easiest thing to do is actually I put a lot of these strategies into this book. It's called The Flip System. It's available right now through our web store for free. You just pay the shipping. If they want to go to getflipsystem.com, they can get a free version of this. We'll send it out to them. And a lot of the techniques and strategies that we taught today on this interview are in here, as well as my story of fighting pancreatic cancer. A lot of the things I did well in my real estate career, and also the big mistakes that I made that you guys can avoid. Check that out. That's a great way to learn more about me and a lot of our residential investing strategies.
Awesome. We'll put a link down there, getflipsystem.com. Go check out Josh's book. So Josh, thanks again for spending time with us today.
Absolutely, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And everybody, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate you following along. Like I said, go out and subscribe, give us a little love. We'd appreciate it. Till then, we'll see you on the next show. Thanks for listening to today's show. There are 3 ways I can help you start or grow your real estate investing business. If you're a new investor and just getting started, the Flip Nerd Investor Coaching Program is the most effective program in America. I've been coaching and mentoring new real estate investors for 10 years, and my students have literally purchased thousands and thousands of properties. Many of them started with little to no experience at all. Our program is a paint-by-numbers program where we tell you exactly what to do week by week to make sure that you don't get distracted on your way to results. We show you how to build a real business, not just create another job for yourself. New memberships are limited. You can learn more and apply or schedule a call with me and my team at flipnerd.com/coaching. If you're an experienced investor doing a minimum of 10 deals a year, up to 500 deals a year or more, or have a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio already, you should check out our powerful Investor Fuel Real Estate Investor Mastermind. Over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors are members, and it's not uncommon for our members to 2 to 5x their business just from getting around other members at Investor Fuel. At Investor Fuel, each of us are business advisors to one another's businesses, but we don't stop at business. We focus heavily on becoming better people and living fuller lives. If you're looking for fuel for your business or fuel for your life, please check out investorfuel.com. Applications and interviews are required, as most investors are not a fit for our community. Please learn more at investorfuel.com. If you're not ready for coaching or masterminds but eager to start learning more about investing, please join our private Facebook group by visiting flipnerd.com/Facebook. New members get access to free training from us right here at flipnerd.com, and it's a community to safely ask your questions, a great place to get started. Simply go to flipnerd.com/Facebook to request your access today.